Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Talk to your specialist about Botox Cosmetic, Anabotulinum Toxin A, because Botox Cosmetic Day is back on November 20th. For one day only, buy one $50 gift card, get one free, while supplies last. It gets better because it's not just one day of celebration, but the whole month of November. Refer a friend to Ali, and you'll both get $50 off a Botox Cosmetic treatment. Plus, if you register and get treated during November 1st to 30th, you have the chance to win $10,000. For prescribing information and box warning, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300. No purchase necessary for sweepstakes entry. Treatment must occur by 12/6. For full official rules, offer terms and conditions, and to join Ali, visit BotoxCosmeticDay.com.
This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
Hello and welcome to War Horses, the only college equestrian podcast that is coming to you from Auburn, Alabama. I'm your host, Auburn Elvis. Let's talk about some college equestrian. All right, let's jump right on into it and look at some meet recaps. So Friday, we started out with UC Davis at South Dakota State. I thought that, I thought the Jackrabbits were going to win this one, that it would be close. Let's see what happened. Fences started out, that went 4-1 for South Dakota State. In the flat, that went 3-2 for UC Davis. So pretty close there to start out with. Then in horsemanship, that went 3-2 for UC Davis. And reining went 3-2 for South Dakota State. That made the final score 11-9 South Dakota State. Yes, the home team gets it done. They had that big fences performance to get things going, and yeah, that allowed them to get their first win of the season. Good job, Jackrabbits. For UC Davis, well, obviously they have taken a step back this season, but there's still lots of riding ahead of them, and a conference title is still achievable if they can step things up a notch. Next meet to look at, TCU at Texas A&M. I thought Texas A&M going to win this one probably by a good bit, so let's see what happened. Fences went 4-1 for Texas A&M. Flat went 4-1 for Texas A&M. Horsemanship went 3-2 for TCU, and reining went 3-2 for TCU. Yeah, you got a combination of one team doing really well in jump and seat, one team doing well in Western, but Texas A&M emerged victorious 12-8. This was a nice home win for A&M, as everybody should know who listens to the show by now. If you want to win a national championship, you're pretty much going to have to win all of your home meets. Teams that don't do that usually aren't good enough to win the national championship. For TCU, this was a close loss. It's tough to win on the road. Everybody but Auburn has a road loss, and the Tigers are probably going to get one eventually. So there's no shame at losing at home to Texas A&M. But no, good win for the Aggies here. Next one to talk about is Auburn at Oklahoma State. I thought this one was going to go to the Cowgirls, that it would be close, but that the home team would prevail. Let's see how this went. Fences was 4-1 for Auburn, and reining went 4-1 for Auburn. So right out of the gate, Auburn's up 8-2 at halftime. Big lead, but, we've seen them lose a big lead at Oklahoma State before, back in 2021, I believe. And so here's how the second half went. Horsemanship went 3-2 for Oklahoma State. So here we go. We see, the Cowgirls are coming back. But then Auburn wins the flat 3-2, and that makes the final score 13-7 for Auburn. Big win for Auburn on the road. I'll tell you, last year's Auburn team would not have gotten this win, but we can see early on in the season here that Auburn is the one team in the nation that is capable of getting these road wins over a top 5 opponent. Nobody else has been able to do that yet. So in addition to being perfect at home, these kind of road performances are just what every team dreams of getting. And right now, Auburn is the only team getting them. For Oklahoma State, this is a tough loss. Like we said, teams that are going to contend for the national championship, they really need to win all their home meets. So this loss does cast a little bit of doubt on the Cowgirls' ability to get those tough wins when it counts. We'll see if things improve for them over the season, though. All right, now let's look at Georgia at South Carolina. I wasn't really excited for this meet because whichever team ended up losing, things were not going to be great for them. Both teams have not looked really great so far in the season, and they both really needed to win this, and that can't happen, so let's see what did happen. Fences went 4-1 for Georgia. Horsemanship was a 2-2 tie, so that meant that the halftime score was 6-3 in favor of Georgia. So the home team is down at half. Not great, but they come back in flat. That went 3-1 for South Carolina. So here they are. They've caught back up. And then reigning, that went 3-1 for Georgia. So that made the final score 10-7 in favor of Georgia. So with the Bulldogs getting the win, this was a really nice win for them. They have squeaked out a pair of SEC victories in as many weeks. They took their lumps in some of the non-conference meets, but they lead the SEC right now, and that is something to celebrate. For South Carolina, the rebuild continues to be a tough one. The good news for the Gamecocks is that the SEC portion of their schedule is over. The bad news is that they lost all of them. Okay, now let's look at Minnesota Crookston versus UC Davis. This was a neutral site meet, 4-on-4. I thought that the Aggies were going to win this one by about 10 or so. Let's see what happened. Horsemanship was a 2-2 tie. Fences was the 2-2 tie. They're like, oh my goodness, look at this. Crookston, they're keeping it close. And then in the second half, flat went 4-0 for UC Davis, and reigning went 3-1 for UC Davis. So what started out as a close meet ended up an 11-5 UC Davis win. Really nice win for UC Davis. They have been struggling so far this season, but here they got a neutral site win over Crookston, and they're going to try to build on that going forward. For Minnesota Crookston, obviously the Golden Eagles, most of the meets they're overmatched. Well, pretty much all of them. They're overmatched by a bigger school with more resources, and so they're doing the best they can, but we're seeing some real progress here. They hung in this meet all through the first half, and they had things tied up. I mean, yeah, and when you consider that UC Davis has got a deeper program, it was really that depth is what got the better of them. So keep on riding, Crookston. Your improvements are being noticed. Good job. Fresno State at Baylor. This was another interesting meet. In fact, I got a message before this one from somebody saying, hey, do you really think Baylor could be one of the best teams in the nation? And I said, well, technically, yes. Their first two meets were on the road, and they lost those, but just about every team in the nation would have lost those. So until they lose a home meet or lose a road meet that someone else wins, Baylor, they could be among the best teams in the nation right now. And we just don't know it because they would have like a really tough schedule. So with that, let's look and see how the meet went. Flat started off. That went 4-1 for Baylor. Raining happened, and that went 3-2 for Fresno State. Right there, it's a 6-4 lead for Baylor at the half. They're the home team, so that's kind of what you would expect. Then in the second half, that went 3-2 in horsemanship for Baylor, and fences went 3-2 for Baylor as well. That made the final score 12-8 in favor of Baylor. Really good home win for Baylor. They proved that maybe, some of their early season losses were just due to being on the road. Now, we did see Auburn go into Oklahoma State and get that win, and Baylor did not do that. So we can definitively say that Auburn is better than Baylor, but the Bears could be better than a lot of y'all think. For Fresno State, they were really hoping they could get this upset, but it just wasn't meant to be. Still, losing on the road is not a deal breaker. They're going to stay in the bottom of the Big 12 standings for right now, but I expect that the spring season is going to help them out a little bit. Over we go to Saturday and look at Minnesota Crookston at South Dakota State. Now, I thought the Jackrabbits were going to win this one by about 10. Let's see what happened. Fences went 4-0 for South Dakota State. Horsemanship was a 2-2 tie. Okay. Nice lead for South Dakota State, but it's not terrible. But then in flat, in the second half, flat happened, and that was 3-1 for South Dakota State, and reigning was also 3-1 for South Dakota State. That added up to a 12-4 South Dakota State victory. Nice little home win for the Jackrabbits. This helps them stay pretty close to UT Martin in the ECAC standings. For the Golden Eagles, once again, they showed improvement. They got a tie in horsemanship, so that's good right there. Anytime they're getting the ties in events, or someday they're going to win one of these events, that's sign of progress. So they're going to be able to take something positive away from this meet. Good job. Now we'll look at a single discipline meet: College of Charleston at Dartmouth. Now this is one I really was excited to see because Charleston, they started out like gangbusters, but, they lost over at Sweetbriar. What was going to happen when they went on the road to Dartmouth? And Dartmouth is a good team. Let's see what happened. Flat was the first event. Charleston won that one 3-2. So right out of the gate, you're like, all right, Cougars, they got the lead. Then in fences, Dartmouth went to work. They won that one 4-1, and so they came from behind and ended up winning 6-4. So kind of close, but still nice win for the green. They showed they can stay with the top teams, and they did it. And they're making a really good case for their return trip to Ocala over in April. For Charleston, well, this would have been a really nice win to get. It's okay to drop a road meet to a really good single discipline team, and they do have a chance to rebound the following day. So, now let's go over to the next day. On Sunday, Charleston at Sacred Heart. I thought Charleston would win this one by about a point or two. Fences started off, it was 2-2 tie, so okay, everything's deadlocked. And then in the flat, Sacred Heart came out and won that one 3-1. Yeah, they ended up getting the win 5-3 there. Good job, Sacred Heart. They won at home. This was the first win of the season for the Pioneers. They had dropped a home meet against Dartmouth to open up their season, but they took care of business on Sunday against a good Charleston team. Speaking of the Cougars, this was a disappointing weekend overall. They really wanted to show that loss to Sweetbriar was just a one-time thing, but now they're on a 3-meet losing streak, and it is really hurting their resume. So they're going to get another crack at Dartmouth and Sacred Heart in the spring, but for now, they're just going to have to go into the winter break thinking of what might have been. So that's all of this week's meets. Now let's take a look at the official Auburn Elvis College Equestrian rankings. We're going to start off with the dual discipline. Number 1 is Auburn. I've been cautioning a lot of people to not get too excited about Auburn just yet, but that win at Oklahoma State is something that few teams could have done, and the Tigers are 5-0. Their resume just keeps improving. Number 2 is Texas A&M. The Aggies are 4-1 after the home win against TCU, but they're going to head to Auburn this week, but that means they also have a chance to shock the world. Number 3 is SMU. The Mustangs are 2-3, but those 2 were impressive, and those 3 losses are just not that bad. Number 4 is TCU. The Frogs are 5-3. All their losses are forgivable losses that most teams would have also gotten, and they have a pair of really nice road wins over Georgia and Fresno State. Number 5 is Oklahoma State. Yeehaw! The Cowgirls are 3-2, and like the teams above them, their wins are nice and their losses are understandable. Number 6 is Georgia. Georgia improved to 2-2 with the road win at South Carolina. The Bulldogs have started slowly this season, but their upcoming California trip and hosting of Auburn are big opportunities for them to show that they have plugged any leaks in the ship. Number 7 is Baylor. The 1-2 Bears jump up from number 10 because unlike the teams around them, they don't have a home loss. They upset Fresno State at home, and their 2 losses are ones that most teams not named Auburn would have also picked up. Number 8 is Fresno State. The Bulldogs are 3-2 overall, and how well they defend their home turf these next 2 weeks will tell us just how much they've improved this season. Number 9 is South Carolina. The Gamecocks are 2-3, but it's not a very good 2-3 right now. Their next 2 meets are single discipline only meets against Sweetbriar and Lynchburg. And normally I would say that you need to rotate in some of your less experienced girls into the lineup because you know you're going to beat these teams, so there's no need to just take it out on them. But this time I'm changing that and I'm saying just put the hammer down. Start all your best riders because you really need a boost of energy. And goodness knows I love Sweetbriar, I love Lynchburg, but they're going to be okay if you beat them 10-0 or 9-1 or something like that. So don't mess around with them. Just go out and just beat the brakes off of them. Get a nice single discipline win for the jumping seat team, and that way you can use that hopefully to get better before SEC competition resumes in February. And number 10 is UT Martin. I had to put somebody at number 10, so it's going to be the Skyhawks. They are the best ECAC team right now, but they still have work to do if they hope to get to Ocala. They are also going to need some teams like South Carolina and Baylor and Fresno State to keep losing as well. So, yeah, life is tough right now for UT Martin. Now, let's look at the single discipline rankings. We had a few changes here. Now, we didn't have a change at number 1. Number 1 is still Sweetbriar. The Vixens are 2-1 after their loss to Lynchburg, but I'm going to keep them at number 1. They lost on the road, and their 2 wins came against 2 teams that Lynchburg could not beat. So I feel good about keeping Sweetbriar number 1 even after their loss. Number 2 is Dartmouth. The Green are the last perfect single-discipline team at 3-0, but since they haven't ridden against Sweetbriar or Lynchburg yet, I'm only going to raise them up to number 2. But still, this is the highest I think they've ever been ranked, so I don't think they're going to complain too much. Number 3 is Lynchburg. The 3-2 Hornets made the jump up from number 5 to number 3 after handing Sweetbriar their first loss of the season. They still haven't erased those 2 early losses from their resume, but don't worry, the NCEA voters are going to forget all about it once January gets here. Number 4 is College of Charleston. The Cougars dropped a pair of road meets and fall to 2-3 overall, and the bloom has really fallen off the rose for them. They'll have 3 straight home meets coming up in the spring to stop their tumble down the rankings, though. Number 5 is Swanee. Lynchburg's resurgence has pushed the 1-2 Tigers out of the top 4 this week, but unlike previous years, they have a lot of meets on their schedule and lots of chances to remain in the conversation for an invite to Ocala. Number 6 is Sacred Heart. The 1-1 Pioneers jump up to the number 6 spot after a home win over Charleston, but they're going to need to ride well at Dartmouth this week if they want to climb any higher. Number 7 is Centenary.
It's a twister! It's a twister!
The Cyclones do not have a lot of chances to improve their resume, so their 1-1 record really doesn't give us a lot to look at. They're going to have to be content as other teams around them with bigger resumes just kind of move above them. Number 8 is Barry. Barry still has not started their NCEA schedule yet, so we're going to keep waiting to see how well they can ride. And number 9 is Bridgewater. The Eagles are 0-2, but have a series of upcoming meets that could give them their first win of the season. All right, that is all of the rankings. Now let's turn our attention to the future and look at some meet previews. Up first, we have Georgia at UC Davis. I'll tell you, Georgia really needs this win. They just got to win over South Carolina, but man, they got to keep it going on the road. Davis also needs a win. So normally I would go the home team with this when they're close, but I don't think UC Davis is riding that well to call them close to Georgia, even though Georgia isn't riding great either. So I'm just going to pick Georgia by about 5 or 6 points. Lynchburg at Centenary. First off, good job, Centenary, for hosting. The past few years, we haven't seen teams like Lynchburg and Sweetbriar go on the road because they've basically had to do all the hosting. But now we're getting more and more teams doing hosting, so we actually get to see the Hornets and the Vixens go on the road. That's a good thing. Still, though, I think the Hornets are going to, they're putting things together. I think they're going to take care of business. They're going to win by about 3 or 4 points, even though it's on the road. Georgia at Fresno State. Georgia's going to be tested here. We've seen them struggle at home, and I think they're probably going to lose a close one to Fresno State. So I'm picking the Bulldogs, which is, well, y'all get the joke. They're both Bulldogs. Anyway, I think it's going to be a 1 or 2 point win for Fresno State. Baylor at SMU. I don't hold out much hope for Baylor here. I'm not sure if anyone could beat SMU at home this season, so I think this is going to end up being a big win for the Mustangs, probably about 10 points. Bridgewater at Centenary. I think the Cyclones are going to prevail at home by about 2, maybe 3 points. And then our last one is our meet of the week, number 1 versus number 2, Texas A&M at Auburn. The Aggies are good enough to beat Auburn, but I think doing that in Auburn is probably a little too tough. I think Auburn continues their winning streak, and they'll end up getting this one, I think, by about 4 points. Oh wait, we do have one more meet here. It was stuck right on in. Sacred Heart at Dartmouth. Okay, it would be an enormous upset if the Pioneers could get the win here. I doubt they're going to do it. I think the Green are going to remain unbeaten, and they're going to win this one by about 4 points. All right, that is all of this week's show. The season is humming along. We only got a couple of more weeks until we hit the winter break. All the teams are doing great. Even the teams that aren't, getting the wins, we can see marked improvement for most of y'all. You're all doing fine. So, I hope nobody's getting down too much. Even if, I talk about your team and how they didn't win, you're still really good at riding horses and better than most of the population. So that's something you can take away from this. Plus, y'all are all getting good educations. You're learning about time management and how to, work through projects and have goals and all that good stuff. So please don't get down on yourselves, because I think it's just great. I think everything's going fine, and this is just a wonderful sport, and I hope y'all are having as much fun as I am. Man, good season. So we're going to see how it keeps going on. I am your host, Auburn Elvis. I thank you very much for listening, and war horses.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.